Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be sticking the engine back into the GTO, and I'm pretty excited about this because when I bought the car for $3,000 a few months ago, the car literally was in a million pieces, especially the engine. But now the engine is back together, and the final piece, the ATI damper, which it was missing the crank pulley, I decided I'm going to go for an aftermarket pulley just because I have the stage 4 Texas speed cam. And eventually I'm going to upgrade the engine further. So I might, end up turboing it, supercharging it. I'm not exactly sure yet, but when I do that, I'll have to change camshaft. But it'll be really nice to have that ATI damper on there because I won't have to worry about excessive harmonics on the crankshaft, which the older crank pulleys, it's a 2006. That crank pulley had been on there since 2006. So it's really nice to get a new one, change it out. They're not that expensive. I'll put the link in the description for that, and we'll get all this back together. So let's get the engine off the ground, get the pulley on the engine, and then once the pulley is on the engine, I could throw it back in the car. But before I throw it back in the car, I probably should not forget to throw the torque converter in the transmission because that would be bad. But I have the ATI damper installed on the LS2. Everything is ready to go back in the GTO, but before I stick it in the GTO, I want to address these headers. So these are the headers I got with the car, and they're not bad. So they're pretty decent headers, but besides them being pretty decent headers, the exhaust and the headers were all one piece. So the guy that disassembled the engine in the first place just cut the exhaust, which was nice because he cut it on the crappy exhaust the exhaust shop welded on, which is weird because I think this is like 3" going down to like 2" or 3 1/4 going down to 2". But I want to cut this off of here, clean all this up, weld some V-band flanges on those, and then I'll probably hang like 6 inches to a foot of pipe off the other side of that V-band flange. So then when I go and put an exhaust on there, or if I end up making exhaust myself, I could just go and it'll be really simple. There'll already be flanges. I won't be having to pull the headers back off, which will be really nice. Another thing is these headers don't look that nice. So I'm gonna clean them up, get some of the high temp silver that I have right there. It's just matte silver, works out very well. And if I end up leaving this supercharger non-turbo, I will end up blasting these headers or maybe getting another set of headers and then Cerakoting them. But for now, this will work fine for what it is. And it'll make these look really nice. It'll keep in some of the heat. They'll have V-bands on there. They won't, it won't be a single piece exhaust. It'll work out really well. I now have the engine all the way back together. We have spark plugs, we have headers, we have the intake manifold, throttle body, and finally we have this damper on. So I ended up having to order a tool. These have a little bit thicker hub, so you can't actually get the bolt started. On the factory ones, you could do it. I did it on the Grand Prix. I've done it on a lot of things, but the bolt won't reach, and these are a press fit. So I didn't want to have to worry about stripping the threads out. I ended up ordering the tool off Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. Works very well, and I think it's like 20 bucks. So got that on there. One thing I want to do, well, eventually I want to do when I rebuild this thing, eventually. I'm sure it's going to happen, but I want to key the crankshaft. So these marks, so right now these marks mean nothing because it's not 100% lined up. Eventually I'll key that and then just put a Woodruff key. It's pretty simple, but a lot of people just do the drill thing where you drill a hole and then put like a little pin in there. I don't really like that, so I'll just do it the right way, but you have to pull the crankshaft out of it to do it the right way. So that'll be later on down the road, and it really doesn't matter because I'm never going to supercharge this. I'll just turbo it if I do anything, and just kind of go from there. So what I want to do now is get this back in the GTO, and she should just slide back in. And I need to remember to put the torque converter. So I'm going to put the torque converter somewhere where I could see it, so I don't put the engine on without the torque converter in there. The engine is now back into the GTO and it looks pretty good, but one issue that I found, the headers. So I had them on the engine. I was gonna try to stick it in with the headers on, wasn't gonna fit. Pulled the headers off, thought I was gonna be able to get the headers on after I got the engine in the car, and they still don't fit. So what I'm gonna do, I also thought that I had the starter, but now it's gone. So I'm gonna order a starter, gonna order an AC compressor. Then once I get those, we'll drop the engine and transmission and the cradle all as one assembly, and then it'll be really easy. I'll put the headers on, and I'll have to do the same thing once I turbo it. I'll have to drop the cradle to get the headers off to do the forward facing exhaust manifolds. So that'll be later on down the road. And another reason I really want to get that serpentine belt for the AC compressor on there, get all that hooked up as well, instead of just kind of doing it half now and then having to pull all that stuff apart later on. But I do have all the injectors in. I wanted to flow them, but I just cleaned them up, threw them in. Hopefully we don't have any that are stuck open. If worse comes to worse, I'll just order another set like I did for the Pontiac Grand Prix, and I'll just, throw these ones in the trash because the injectors are so cheap. But we have the power steering pump connected, and everything else is pretty much ready to go. I'm glad that I don't have a steering shaft really 100% on, because to drop the subframe, I'll have to drop all that out as well. And then I'll have to disconnect all this wiring. I hooked up all the injectors, crank sensor, the cam sensor, pretty much as I possibly could. But I really want to get this 100% instead of just rushing it. So you guys know I don't like to rush stuff. So get pretty much everything buttoned up, but I'm really happy to see it finally in the engine bay, because the car itself sits a little bit lower because there's some weight in it, but definitely needs to be, I think I need to get some coilovers for this thing and some different wheels. So somebody mentioned wheels. These wheels, yeah, I definitely don't like them, but I need to figure out the offsets. I think 19 by 9 plus 32 and 19 by 10 like plus 35 or something like that. I'll have to look at offsets and everything for this, but I've kind of been researching it. There's a pair of HREs that were for sale, but the rear ones were going to be, I think they were like plus 15, so they would stick way too far out in rub, which I don't want. So, because I don't want to roll the fenders. This is a really clean GTO, low miles. But what I'm going to do now, put the hood back on this thing, close everything up. I already taped all of the exhaust ports shut, so no dirt or nothing can get into the engine. And we'll revisit this once we have the parts. And by the time we get the parts, I should be able to get the GTO over to the tuner, and we should be able to get this thing running and driving, which will be really nice to get this thing on the lift, because I still have to put the one-piece drive shaft in and do some stuff with the tranny, put the torque converter bolts in, etc. It'll be really nice to do it on the lift. But I'm going to end the video here. If you like these videos, make sure to click the subscribe button, throw a thumbs up, throw a comment below. As always, see you guys next time.